The beach house was his secret, our secret once, until he handed it to her like it meant nothing. But the moment he unlocked that door, he found me and her husband already inside, waiting. My name is Rachel Monroe. I'm 36, a nurse by profession, a mother by instinct, and, apparently, a wife by default. I used to believe in loyalty, in long weekends, in shared calendars. I believed in the kind of love that lets you build a life and bury your past at the same time. Then I found out about her. And the house. Our beach house. The one we bought in Wilmington after our 5th anniversary, where we said we'd grow old and drink coffee on the porch until we forgot our own names. Turns out, my husband took his mistress there. So I went too, with her husband. And together, we waited. It started with a notification. Not lipstick on a collar. Not the scent of perfume that didn't belong to me. Just a soft ping from Jack's iPad left on the kitchen counter while he was in the shower. I wasn't snooping. I was making coffee. My mug was half full, steam rising, when I saw the screen light up. I miss waking up with you. The house feels empty without your arms around me. That's all it said. One line. No name. But that was all it took. I didn't move for a moment. Didn't blink. Just stared at the words like they might rearrange themselves into something innocent. They didn't. Jack was humming upstairs. Some half-forgotten Springsteen song. I picked up the iPad with careful fingers and opened the full message. And just like that, my marriage changed. Dozens of texts. Photos. Late-night plans. Pet names. Hotel check-ins. Talk about a place. I can't wait to be in your arms at the beach house. Our beach house. The one we bought on our 5th anniversary in Wilmington. The place we renovated with blood, sweat, and shared Pinterest boards. The porch where we drank wine and talked about growing old. The bedroom where he once whispered he'd never love anyone else. That house. I didn't cry. I didn't throw the iPad or scream into the void. I just closed the messages, placed the tablet gently back on the counter, and poured the rest of my coffee. Jack came downstairs 5 minutes later with wet hair and a lazy smile. Hey, Rach. You make the good stuff. I handed him his mug. Extra strong. Just how you like it. That night, I watched him sleep. I thought about all the little things. The way he always left the bathroom light on, how he never remembered to refill the ice trays, how he rubbed the back of my neck whenever I looked stressed. I used to love those things. Now, I didn't know what I felt. I was floating above it all, watching myself from a great distance. By morning, I had a plan. Her name was Alyssa Dorsey. It didn't take long to find her. She was one of those people who curated every corner of her life for social media. Every post was filtered, sunny, and nauseatingly serene. Yoga poses on the beach. Quotes about energy and calling in joy. And then there he was. Her husband. Evan Dorsey. Clean cut. Serious eyes. Finance guy. The captions always called him my rock or my protector. I wondered if she whispered the same to Jack. I found Evan on LinkedIn. Sent a message that simply read, I think we need to talk. It's about Alyssa and Jack. He responded in 10 minutes. Meet me. Tomorrow. We chose a coffee shop in a town neither of us lived in. Neutral ground. I arrived early and sat at a window table, hands clenched around my cup. The bell above the door chimed 15 minutes later. Evan walked in. Button-down shirt. No ring. Eyes like someone who hadn't slept properly in weeks. He spotted me, nodded once, and sat across from me without a word. I'm Rachel, I said. I know. He placed his phone on the table, screen up. I did the same. No games. Do you know how long it's been going on? He asked. I shook my head. Months. Maybe longer. There are messages, photos. He exhaled sharply. I thought she was pulling away. I thought it was work stress. So did I. He stared at his coffee, then looked up. What do you want to do? I want to see where they're going next, I said. They're going to the beach house this weekend. His jaw tightened. She told me she had a women's retreat. She even packed a yoga mat. I gave a short, bitter laugh. He told me he's going to a fishing trip with college friends. We sat in silence for a moment, the weight of their lies pressing between us. Then Evan said, "Let's go there first." I expected myself to flinch, to hesitate, but I didn't. Something about sitting across from the other half of this betrayal made me bold, made me cruel in a quiet way. "They won't be expecting it," I said. "No," he agreed. "They won't." We made a plan. We'd leave Friday morning, let ourselves in, sit in the living room, wait for them to walk through the door, thinking they had the whole weekend to themselves. And then, well, we'd see. Friday came fast. I told Jack I was going to visit my sister, kissed him goodbye with the same mouth he used to call me his home. The drive was quiet. Evan and I didn't talk much. The air between us was taut, heavy with anticipation. The beach house stood just as it always had, white shingles, blue shutters, the porch swing creaking gently in the breeze. It looked exactly like the future we used to imagine. We unlocked the door with Jack's spare key. Inside, it smelled like salt and lemon and something else, something like old lies. I walked straight to the living room and sat on the couch. Evan dropped his overnight bag and leaned against the wall, arms folded. "Are we doing this?" he asked. I met his eyes. "We already are." The hours passed slowly. At first, Evan and I didn't talk much. The beach house felt too familiar, too haunted. I walked the rooms like I was tracing the edges of an old photograph, one where I still smiled without knowing better. The guest room still had the throw blanket I'd picked out from that little coastal boutique. The welcome mat still read, "Home is a feeling." I nearly laughed when I saw it. I sat on the edge of the couch and watched the ocean through the sliding doors. It was overcast, the waves choppy. Even the sea felt unsettled. Evan came out of the kitchen with 2 mugs of coffee. "I hope you still drink it black." I took it from him. "I do now." He nodded, sat beside me, not close, not distant. "Just enough." "You ever think about how weird this is?" he said eventually. "All the time. 2 strangers sitting in a beach house waiting to catch our spouses cheating. Not exactly what I imagined for Friday." He let out a dry chuckle. "Same." A moment passed. Then I said, "It's not the sex that breaks you. It's the lying. The long, slow unraveling of everything you thought was real." He looked at me. "Yeah. It's like you start replaying everything. Every kiss. Every dinner. Every time they said I love you, wondering which parts were true." I sipped my coffee. Maybe none of it. Maybe all of it. Maybe that's the worst part. We spent the afternoon going room by room, like archaeologists digging through someone else's life. Only it was ours. In the master bedroom, I found a scarf of Alyssa's on the dresser. Perfume clung to the fabric. Sweet. Citrus. Designed to smell effortless. "Leave it," I said when Evan moved to throw it in the wardrobe. He glanced at me. "They need to see what they left behind." He nodded and let it fall back. At sunset, we made dinner, pasta, and red wine. It felt absurd, domestic, intimate, in a way that shouldn't have been. But grief is funny like that. It craves company, familiarity, even in strangers. "You know," I said as we ate by candlelight, "if someone walked in right now, they'd think we were on a date." He smirked. "I'd say it's the most emotionally complex date I've ever been on." We clinked glasses. Softly. Almost shy. Later, I stood on the porch, arms folded, wind tangling my hair. Evan joined me. He handed me a blanket. Still cold. Always. We didn't speak for a while. Then I said, "What will you do if she says it was a mistake?" "Don't know." "What if she begs?" He hesitated. "Part of me wants her to. Just so I can say no." I understood that. More than I could admit. It was close to midnight when the headlights finally appeared in the drive. I didn't panic. Didn't pace. I stood still as glass, my heart loud in my chest, but my hands steady. Evan moved to the window. "They're here," he said. I turned toward the door. "This is it." He looked at me. "You ready?" "No. But I'm done running." We stepped back, stood side by side in the center of the living room. The key turned in the lock. Voices outside, laughing. The door opened, and in walked Jack and Alyssa, all glowing skin and whispered promises. Until they saw us. Until time stopped. And all the air went still. The silence hit first. When Jack and Alyssa stepped into the living room and saw us standing there, it was like the world forgot how to make sound. Their mouths opened, but no words came out. Just breath. Just disbelief. Jack blinked. Rachel? Alyssa let out a small, involuntary gasp. Evan crossed his arms. I didn't move. I had imagined this moment so many times, screaming, throwing something, slapping someone across the face like in the movies. But now that it was here, I felt nothing. Not rage. Not sadness. Just a strange, hollow calm. Hey, honey, I said, my voice quiet and razor-sharp. Welcome home. Jack glanced at Evan, confused. What the hell is this? What it looks like, Evan said. You shouldn't be here, Alyssa said, her voice shaking. No, I said, stepping forward. We shouldn't need to be here. Jack tried to recover. This isn't look, whatever you think this is, it's not. Stop. I held up a hand. Don't insult both of us by lying. Not after all the texts, the pictures, the messages on the iPad you forgot to log out of. His face blanched. Evan's eyes were fixed on Alyssa. You told me you were going on a wellness retreat. She looked away. I trusted you, he added. I left you with our son, and you came here. I didn't, I mean. Don't lie to me, he said, voice firm. Not now. Jack tried again, stepping toward me. Rachel, listen. It's complicated. No, Jack. It's not. You brought your mistress to the beach house we built. That's pretty simple. His face crumpled. I didn't mean for this to happen. Didn't mean to cheat? No, I don't know. I didn't plan it. I laughed. Bitter and humorless. You didn't trip and fall into bed with her, Jack. You made a choice. Over and over again. Alyssa finally spoke, her voice soft. It wasn't just sex. We all turned toward her. She looked pale, but there was something steel-like behind her eyes. I loved him, she said. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Evan said, and what about me? Alyssa didn't answer. We all sat down, not because we wanted to, but because our legs didn't know what else to do. Two couples. One broken, the other betrayed. We were quiet for a long time. The only sound was the ticking of the old wall clock and the waves crashing outside. I came here to confront you, I said eventually, looking at Jack. To get answers. He swallowed. Okay. So, tell me, when did it start? He hesitated. 6 months ago. Try again. Alyssa spoke up. It's been over a year. Jack closed his eyes. I didn't want to hurt you. But you did, I said. And you kept doing it. Evan stood up, hands in fists. We trusted you both. We built lives with you. And you took those lives and played house with each other. Alyssa stood too. Don't make this more dramatic than it is. Are you serious? He barked. You used our house. Our time. Our love. She flinched, but said nothing. I looked at Jack, trying to find the man I'd loved for 10 years. What did she give you that I didn't? He stared at the floor. It wasn't about that. Then what was it about? I don't know, he shouted suddenly, voice cracking. I felt invisible, like I was just existing. And cheating made you feel seen? He didn't answer. Alyssa's eyes welled up. I didn't mean for it to go this far. I didn't think it would matter. Evan's voice was ice. You're married. You have a child. It mattered the second you said yes. I wanted to leave you, she said, finally breaking. I just didn't know how. The room spun. Everything felt surreal. Like a bad play with no intermission. Jack looked at me. Really looked. And something in his eyes shifted. Rachel, his voice dropped. I still love you. I closed my eyes. That was the cruelest thing he could have said. I still love you, Jack said again, softer this time. It landed in the room like a cracked dish, not loud, just broken. I looked at him, this man I had built a life with, cried with, planned futures with. The same man who had just spent over a year slipping out of that life behind my back. And now he sat there, asking for something he didn't even know how to name. I didn't speak. Not because I didn't have words, but because the words would hurt more than the silence. Evan stood by the window, arms folded, staring out toward the beach. He hadn't said anything since Alyssa confessed she wanted to leave. He just stood there, jaw tight, breathing hard. Alyssa, seated on the edge of the armchair, finally broke the silence. I never planned this, she whispered. I thought it was just an escape. Something to feel real again. Evan turned. You know what's real? He said, voice low. Paying bills. Watching our son sleep. Driving to pick up medicine when he's sick. I was showing up for all of it while you were chasing real. Her mouth opened. Closed. No defense. No denial. Just shame. Jack looked at me again. I made a mistake, Rachel. I was stupid. But you and I, we're more than this. We've been through too much to let it fall apart now. You let it fall apart, I said quietly. You just thought I would notice. I lost myself, he said. We stopped being close. I thought maybe you didn't care anymore. I laughed, one short, hollow note. You could have talked to me. You could have tried. But instead, you gave pieces of yourself to someone else while I was still holding what was left of us. We all slept in separate rooms that night. Or, at least tried to. I laid in the guest bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to the soft creaks of the house settling. A place that used to hold such warmth now felt like a tomb for four people too afraid to bury what was already dead. At 3:17 a.m., I gave up on sleep and padded into the kitchen. Evan was already there, seated at the counter, nursing a glass of whiskey. You too, huh? I asked. He slid the bottle toward me. Misery loves company. I poured a glass, took a sip, and sat down across from him. Do you think they meant it? I asked. The apology, the tears, all of it. He stared into his glass. I think they meant it in the moment. Doesn't mean it matters. Yeah. A long silence passed. Then he said, I think the worst part is, I still wanted her to choose me, even after everything. I know the feeling, I said. We ended up talking until dawn. About the early days, how love used to feel like. How it slowly thickened, like honey left out in the cold. We laughed about the first holidays with in-laws. We cried a little, but mostly, we just existed together. Not as broken people. Just people. Later that day, Alyssa and Jack packed their things and left. No dramatic exit. No shouting. Just bags and trunks and doors closing behind them. Jack didn't kiss me goodbye. He just paused at the door, looked at me like he wanted to say something. But I turned away before he could. Evan walked her to the car. Didn't hug her. Didn't say a word. Just closed the door after her and stood there, watching the dust rise from the driveway. When he came back inside, he said simply, I don't want to go home yet. Then stay, I replied. That evening, we sat on the porch. 2 cups of coffee. One quiet ocean. No more lies. No more noise. Just the start of something neither of us knew how to name. But we didn't need to, not yet. The beach house was quiet again. Not just empty, still. The kind of quiet that settles when the worst has already happened and all that's left is deciding what to do with the wreckage. Evan and I stayed. Maybe because we weren't ready to go home. Maybe because home didn't feel like a place anymore. On the second morning after Jack and Alyssa left, I found Evan on the back steps, barefoot, coffee in hand, staring out at the gray ocean. He didn't turn when I joined him. Do you ever think, he said, that maybe we saw it all coming and just chose not to? I sat beside him. I think part of me knew, but knowing and accepting are 2 different things. Yeah. He nodded. I kept pretending she was just tired, just distracted, even when she started keeping her phone face down all the time. Jack would flinch when I hugged him from behind. I admitted, like I was catching him in something. A bitter wind rolled in off the sea. Evan looked at me. Were you happy? I didn't answer right away. I thought I was, I said. But now? I'm not sure if I was happy, or just afraid to start over. That afternoon, a knock came at the door. We looked at each other, startled. Neither of us was expecting anyone. I opened it to find Jack standing there. His face was drawn, eyes tired. "I forgot something," he said. I let him in without a word. He moved through the house like a ghost, gathering a jacket, a charger, a book he'd left in the bedroom. On his way out, he stopped. "Rachel," he said, "I'm sorry. I know that doesn't fix anything. But I need you to know. I meant what I said. That you still love me?" He nodded. I folded my arms. "Then why didn't you protect me from this?" He didn't have an answer. He walked out for the last time. That night, Evan made dinner. Something simple, grilled fish, a salad, wine. It felt too normal, and for a moment I hated how easy it was to slip into something that resembled comfort. But grief has stages. And after anger comes reckoning. Later, on the porch, Evan and I talked about our first loves. His was a girl named Nina. Mine was a boy who left me on prom night. We laughed. And then we didn't. I kissed her once after our son was born. Evan said quietly, "Alyssa." It was the first time she pulled away, like she didn't know who I was. I looked at him. "Did you stop trying?" "Eventually," he said. But only after she stopped being someone I recognized. I leaned my head back, looking at the stars. I think Jack loved me, but not the me I became. Not the me with routines, with expectations. He loved the idea of me. And you. I wanted him to be someone he never really was. There was a long pause. And then, without ceremony or warning, I reached for Evan's hand. He let me. No words. No implication. Just warmth in a world that had gone cold. The next morning, I woke up before sunrise. The beach was calling, not in a poetic way, but like muscle memory. I'd spent so many mornings here with Jack, walking the shoreline barefoot, talking about someday. But that version of me, of us, felt like a story someone else had told me. I pulled on a hoodie, grabbed a thermos of coffee, and stepped out onto the sand. Evan was already there, hands in his pockets, wind in his hair, staring out into that gray-blue nothing. "You couldn't sleep either?" I asked. He glanced at me and smiled. Thought I'd beat the crowd. We walked in silence for a while. The kind of silence that's only comfortable with someone who understands your grief without needing it explained. "Do you think we're supposed to go back to them?" I asked finally. Evan shook his head. "I think we already didn't." We reached the driftwood log that had become our unofficial bench and sat. I handed him half of my coffee. He took it without a word. Then he said, "I've been thinking about what Alyssa said. That she didn't mean for it to go this far." "Yeah." "I don't think cheating starts with sex," he said. "It starts with withholding. With every little thing you don't say. Every truth you tuck under the rug." I nodded. Jack stopped asking how I was. I stopped answering. Evan turned to me. "What about now?" I looked at him. "Now." He took a breath. "How are you, Rachel?" It was the first time someone had asked me that in weeks, maybe months, and meant it. I laughed softly. "I'm tired, but lighter." Like something finally cracked open and let air in. He reached out and tucked a strand of hair behind my ear, his fingers lingering just a little longer than they needed to. "Me too," he said. We kissed. It wasn't passionate. It wasn't messy or desperate. It was quiet, gentle, like two people finding warmth in the ruins. When we pulled back, we didn't speak. We didn't have to. It wasn't about revenge. It wasn't about filling a space someone else had left. It was about recognizing someone who saw the wreckage and stayed anyway. Back at the house, we moved through the day like any other. We cooked, read, talked. The kiss lingered between us, but it didn't rush us into anything. We were taking our time now. Finally, that night, I sat in the bedroom and wrote Jack a letter. Not because I wanted him back, but because I needed to say goodbye, the real kind. "Jack, I loved you. I think a part of me always will. But love isn't always enough when trust is gone. You made choices and now I'm making mine. I'm choosing myself this time. And maybe that's the first honest thing I've done in a long time. Goodbye, Rachel." I folded the letter and left it on the kitchen counter. I never planned to send it. Letting go didn't need witnesses. It rained that night. A slow, steady rainfall that pattered against the windows like a rhythm I hadn't heard in a long time. The kind of rain that asks for quiet, for candles, for truth. Evan and I stayed in. He read while I folded laundry. Strange how domestic the aftermath of chaos can feel. Like life insists on continuing, even when your heart is unsure whether to follow. I caught him watching me as I placed folded towels in a basket. "What?" I asked, half smiling. He hesitated. "You look like yourself again." I blinked. "I'm not sure I know who that is anymore." "I think you do," he said. "You just forgot for a while." The next morning, Alyssa was gone. Not metaphorically, literally. She had come back in the night, packed her things quietly, left no note. Evan found her side of the closet empty, her hairbrush gone, her wedding ring on the counter. He didn't cry. He just stood there, staring at it. Then, slowly, he slid it into a drawer and closed it. "She always leaves before the storm," he said. I placed a hand on his back. "You survived it anyway." He nodded. "Yeah." Jack texted that afternoon. Just one line. "Please tell me there's still a chance." I stared at it for a long time. Then I deleted it. Some answers don't need to be spoken. Evan and I spent the day walking through the nearby dunes. The wind had picked up, but it felt good. Honest, biting. I pulled my hoodie tight around me as he talked about his son, about the kind of father he wanted to be now. "I don't want to teach him to stay in something that hurts just because he's afraid of the unknown," he said. I looked at him. "That's the bravest thing I've heard all week." He smiled. "You helped me see it." That night, we didn't pretend. We made dinner, cleaned up, and then curled up on the couch under the same blanket we used to fight over with our spouses. And we kissed again. Longer this time. Slower. Still no promises. No declarations. Just the understanding that something new was blooming, not out of pain, but because of what we'd made peace with. I got a message from my sister the next morning. "Are you okay?" I typed, deleted, and then finally sent. "Better than okay. I'm free." Evan and I sat on the porch with our coffee, like we had so many mornings now. The rain had cleared. The sea was calm. "We'll have to leave eventually," he said. "I know. But not today?" I smiled. "No, not today." We left the beach house a week later. Not because we had to, but because we were ready. I walked through the room slowly that morning, hand grazing the banister, eyes tracing every corner. The house didn't feel like Jack anymore. It didn't feel like us either. It felt like something I had lived through and finally stepped beyond. Evan stood on the porch, his bag already slung over one shoulder. He looked different. Not lighter, exactly, but steadier. Like a man who had learned how to stand still in a storm and not disappear. "You ready?" he asked. I nodded. "Yeah." We drove in silence for the first few miles. Not awkward, just peaceful. The kind of quiet you don't have to fill with noise. Weeks passed. I moved back into my own space, filed for divorce, started therapy. Jack reached out a few more times, but I never responded. Closure wasn't something he could give me. It was something I had already found. Evan and I texted almost every day. Sometimes it was about nothing, a new recipe, a funny headline. Sometimes it was about everything, custody hearings, grief, hope, how strange it felt to miss someone you weren't sure ever really existed. He never rushed anything. And I didn't either. We were rebuilding from the ruins. Carefully. Honestly. 3 months later, we met again. Same beach house. This time, we both brought groceries. And hope. We cooked dinner together, laughed more easily, fell into the rhythm of something that felt real. Not a rebound. Not a mistake. Just right. After dinner, we sat on the porch and watched the sun melt into the water. The light was golden, the air soft. Evan turned to me. "No expectations," he said. "No pressure. But I'd like to try. For real. With you." I looked at him, this man who had walked through fire next to me, not because he had to, but because he chose to. And I said, "Me too." We didn't promise forever that night. We promised honesty. To speak the hard truths before silence ever had a chance to slip between us again. To never become what we had to recover from. Months passed. Love grew. Steady. Earned. Not like a spark, like a sunrise. One you could trust to return every morning. Sometimes people ask if I ever saw Jack again. I didn't. I heard he moved across the country. Started over. Maybe he's better now. Maybe he still tells women he loves beach houses and doesn't mean it. I don't know. I don't care. Because I'm not there anymore. I'm here. With a man who sees me. A life that's real. And a love that came from the wreckage. Not to replace what was lost, but to honor what I finally found. If you've ever stood in the rubble of something you thought would last and chose to rise anyway, subscribe, like, share, comment. You're not alone. And this is not the end. It's just a new kind of beginning.